If a child were raised today the same way children were raised in the 1970s, most experts would call it unsafe. Too little supervision, too much freedom, not enough protection. And yet, that childhood produced one of the most psychologically resilient generations we've ever seen. There is something truly different about people who grew up in the 1970s. They were shaped in a world without constant monitoring, without gadgets, and without adults stepping in at every moment. Modern psychologists and neuroscientists are only now beginning to understand why that environment mattered, and how it quietly built strength, confidence, and emotional resilience. This isn't nostalgia. This isn't about saying things were better back then. It's about asking an uncomfortable question. What did that generation gain? And what might we have unintentionally taken away? To be clear, the 1970s weren't perfect. Real dangers existed, and many of them needed to be addressed. But in trying to eliminate every risk, we may have gone too far and changed childhood in ways that matter more than we realize. Let's explore that balance together.
Today we are told that the more control a child has, the better they develop. More schedules, more monitoring, more protection. Experts tell parents that supervision equals safety, and safety equals good parenting. But the children of the 1970s prove something different. Imagine this. You are 7 years old. It's a Saturday morning in July. The sun is already warm through your bedroom window. You hear your mother in the kitchen, and you wander downstairs in your pajamas. She's making coffee, and she looks at you and says, "Go outside. Be back before dark." And that's it. That's the entire instruction for your day. No phones, no GPS tracking, no adults watching every step. No scheduled activities, no playdates arranged by parents. Just you, your friends, and the freedom to make decisions. You grab a piece of toast, change into your play clothes, and you're out the door. The world is yours for the next 10 hours. What do you do? Where do you go? Who decides? You do. This wasn't neglect. This was normal. Every child on your street experienced the same thing. And something remarkable happened in those unsupervised hours. Something we're only now beginning to understand through neuroscience and developmental psychology. What did you do with that freedom? Let me paint the picture more clearly. You built forts in the woods using fallen branches, old boards you found, maybe a tarp someone's dad wasn't using. You negotiated with your friends about the fort's design. Tommy wanted the entrance on the left, but Sarah said that wouldn't work because of the tree roots. You had to compromise. You had to plan. You had to execute. You invented games using nothing but sticks and stones and imagination. This stick is a sword. That rock is home base. If you get tagged, you're frozen until someone rescues you. Simple rules, but you created them. You modified them when they didn't work. You enforced them when someone cheated. You created entire worlds from imagination. The drainage ditch became a raging river. The abandoned lot became a jungle. The pile of construction materials became a mountain to conquer. Reality transformed through the alchemy of play. And here's what's crucial. You resolved conflicts on your own. When arguments erupted, and they did, there was no adult to arbitrate. You had to work it out. Sometimes you walked away angry. Sometimes you compromised. Sometimes you learned who was worth playing with and who wasn't. These were real social skills, forged in real situations. Modern neuroscience confirms what was happening in your brain during those hours. Free play develops executive functions, the prefrontal cortex abilities to plan, adapt, pivot, and solve problems without external guidance. Dr. Peter Gray, a research professor at Boston College, has shown that the decline in free play directly correlates with increases in childhood anxiety and depression. These skills aren't luxuries. They're essential for success in life. They're what allow adults to navigate ambiguity, to lead, to innovate, to persevere when there's no instruction manual.
While riding your bike through the neighborhood, something else was developing: a sophisticated social intelligence. You instantly noticed details that kept you safe and informed. Which car was parked in old Mr. Henderson's driveway meant whether he was home, and whether you could cut through his yard. Which neighbor was in a bad mood. You could tell from 50 feet away by their body language. Which shortcut was better to avoid today because the older kids were hanging out there. You learned to read people, without adult explanations. Through eye contact, tone of voice, body language, the way someone stood, the energy they projected. Mrs. Patterson would smile and wave, safe to stop and chat. Mr. Rodriguez was grumpy but harmless if you stayed polite. The teenagers on the corner were mostly okay, but if they were being loud and reckless, you quietly chose a different route. This wasn't fear. This was social navigation intelligence. You learned to assess risk and intent in real time, a skill that many people today never fully develop because they've always had adults interpreting the world for them. You developed what psychologists call situational awareness, the ability to perceive environmental elements and events, comprehend their meaning, and project their status into the near future. This is the foundation of good judgment. Let me describe a common scenario from the 1970s that would cause panic today. School was over at 3:15. You walked home, alone or with friends, but no adults. You arrived at an empty house at 3:45. Your parents were both at work and wouldn't be home until 5:30 or 6 o'clock. You reached under the doormat or behind the planter, pulled out the key, and unlocked the door yourself. You walked into the quiet house. You were alone. What did you do? You made yourself a snack, maybe a sandwich, maybe cereal, maybe whatever you could find. You decided how to spend your time. Homework now or later, TV or playing outside, building something or reading. And here's the remarkable thing. There was no anxiety in this. Or if there was at first, it faded quickly. Each afternoon quietly told you, I can handle this. I'm capable. I know what to do. That confidence, that quiet competence, stayed with you for life. Modern children often don't get this experience. They go from school to after-school programs to supervised activities to home where parents are already present. They're never alone. They're never required to be self-sufficient in that particular way. And while this might seem safer, it comes at a cost. The confidence that comes from successfully managing yourself, from being trusted with responsibility, from proving to yourself that you're capable, that's harder to develop when you're constantly supervised. Psychologists have a term for a crucial personality trait: locus of control. It refers to whether you believe your life is shaped by your own actions, internal locus, or by outside forces beyond your control, external locus. Children of the 1970s developed a strongly internal locus of control, and here's why. When something went wrong, you didn't look for someone else to blame or fix it. You asked, what can I do? You fell off your bike. You got back up, checked for serious injuries, and kept riding. No one called a parent. No one filed an incident report. You just continued. You failed a test. You figured out what went wrong. Did you not study enough? Did you not understand the material? What would you do differently next time? The responsibility was yours. You broke something. You fixed it if you could, or you took responsibility and faced the consequences. You didn't blame the toy for being poorly made or the situation for being unfair. You broke it. You owned it. This approach to life, this assumption that you have agency, that your actions matter, that you can influence outcomes, this is incredibly powerful. Research consistently shows that people with an internal locus of control have better stress management, higher achievement, greater life satisfaction, more resilience in the face of setbacks, better mental health outcomes. They don't feel helpless when problems arise. They feel empowered. Here's a scene that no longer exists. A child walks into the living room on a summer afternoon and announces, "I'm bored." The parent, without looking up from their book or task, responds, "Go find something to do." That's it. No suggestions. No entertainment provided. No screen handed over. Just figure it out. And you did. Boredom was normal. It was even expected. And it was in those empty spaces, those unstimulated hours, that something magical happened. Ideas were born. You invented new games. You drew elaborate pictures. You built things. You disappeared into books. You had deep, wandering thoughts about life, about the universe, about yourself. Modern neuroscience research shows that boredom activates what's called the default mode network in the brain, the neural system associated with creativity, imagination, and self-reflection. People who are accustomed to periods of low stimulation have stronger creative thinking and greater stress resilience. Today, boredom is treated as a problem to be immediately solved. The moment a child says they're bored, a device appears or an activity is suggested. We've engineered boredom out of childhood. But in doing so, we may have also engineered out the creativity that emerges from unstimulated time. You climbed tall trees, sometimes so high that looking down made your stomach flip. But you learned which branches would hold your weight and which wouldn't. You rode bikes without helmets down steep hills, feeling the wind whip past your face. Sometimes you crashed. You got scraped up. But you learned control, learned braking, learned how to fall. You jumped into water without knowing the exact depth. Sometimes it was shallower than you thought. You learned to check first next time. The key point isn't that it was safe. It wasn't always. The key point is that you gained experience. Real, physical, consequential experience. You learned to distinguish real danger from imagined fear. A 20-foot tree is scary, but manageable. A 50-foot tree is genuinely dangerous. You understood your limits, not because someone told you, but because you tested them. This created something psychologists call risk calibration, a precise, intuitive sense of danger without panic and without recklessness. You weren't fearless, you were realistically confident. Modern children often grow up in one of two extremes, either overprotected from all risk or exposed to risk in virtual spaces, video games, social media, that don't teach real-world calibration. Neither develops the embodied, physical understanding of risk that comes from climbing, running, jumping, and occasionally failing. There were weekends when no one could come out to play. Billy was visiting his grandparents. Sarah had to go shopping with her mom. Mike was sick. And that was okay. You spent hours alone, reading, drawing, building with Legos, imagining elaborate scenarios with your toys, or just thinking. Long, unstructured thinking about whatever crossed your mind. You learned to be alone, without suffering from it. You understood the difference between being alone and being lonely. Being alone meant solitude, which could be peaceful, creative, restorative. Being lonely meant lacking connection, which was different. This became a powerful resource in adult life. People who are comfortable with solitude have lower dependence on external validation, greater emotional stability, better ability to make independent decisions, more creativity, and self-awareness. Today, many people panic at the thought of being alone. They need constant stimulation, constant connection, constant noise. Silence feels threatening rather than peaceful. But children of the 1970s learned early, you are enough company for yourself. When something hurt emotionally, a friend betrayed you, you weren't picked for the team, someone said something cruel, you couldn't instantly share it. There were no text messages to fire off to a sympathetic friend, no social media to broadcast your hurt or gather validation, no way to immediately process the emotion through external conversation. You simply lived through the emotion. You felt it fully. You sat with it. And you noticed something important. It passed. The hurt didn't last forever. By dinner or by the next day, it had faded. You survived it. This is how emotional self-regulation developed, not by suppressing emotions, but by processing them internally, by learning that feelings are temporary, that you can endure discomfort, that painful emotions don't require immediate action or external fixing. Modern psychology recognizes this as one of the strongest foundations of psychological resilience. The ability to tolerate distress, to sit with uncomfortable emotions, to trust that this too shall pass. These are crucial life skills. Today, immediate emotional expression is encouraged. Feel something? Share it immediately. Upset? Text someone. Angry? Post about it. This can be healthy, but it can also prevent the development of internal emotional processing skills. Children of the 1970s had no choice but to develop those skills, and it served them well. Your favorite TV show aired once a week. If you missed it, it was gone. You had to wait 7 full days for the next episode. No streaming, no recording, just anticipation. Gifts came once a year, birthday and Christmas. Maybe a small toy if you saved your allowance for weeks, but mostly you learned to wait. That toy you wanted? You put it on your Christmas list in September and waited 3 months to see if you'd get it. And the waiting, the anticipation, amplified the joy when it finally arrived. You learned to delay gratification. You learned that wanting something and waiting for it made it sweeter. You learned that not everything happens immediately. This ability is directly linked to lower addiction rates, better academic outcomes, more stable relationships, greater financial responsibility, higher overall life satisfaction. The famous marshmallow test in psychology shows that children who can delay gratification have better life outcomes across almost every measure. Children of the 1970s got daily practice in delayed gratification. Modern children, in a world of instant downloads and same-day delivery, get much less. You experienced failure. Real failure. Without participation trophies, without protection of self-esteem at all costs. You tried out for the team Bemisson and didn't make it. You entered the art contest and didn't win. You asked someone to be your friend and they said no. It hurt. Sometimes it hurt badly. You cried. You felt embarrassed. You questioned yourself. But then something happened. You tried again. Or you tried something else. Or you accepted it and moved on. Failure was feedback, not a verdict. It didn't define you permanently. It was information about this particular attempt, this particular situation. It didn't mean you were fundamentally flawed. This is what made the children of the 1970s so resilient as adults. They had experience with failure. They knew it wasn't fatal. They knew they could survive disappointment and come back stronger. Modern psychology emphasizes the importance of resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks. But resilience can't be taught in a classroom. It has to be lived. It comes from actually experiencing failure and discovering that you survive it. When we protect children from ever failing, from ever feeling the sting of losing or not being chosen or not succeeding, we don't protect them. We prevent them from developing the very resilience they'll need for life. Today, those children of the 1970s are parents and grandparents themselves. And as they watch their own children and grandchildren, they often feel a powerful urge to protect them from everything they experienced, to fix every problem, to smooth every path, to prevent every disappointment. But then they pause, and they remember. They remember how they learned. They remember the confidence that came from managing alone. They remember the creativity born from boredom. They remember the social skills forged without adult mediation. They remember the resilience built from failure. Do you remember what you did when no one was watching? Where did you play? And they realize their children need those experiences too, so they create space. Not neglect, but space. Freedom within boundaries. Risk with safety nets. responsibility appropriate to age, time to be bored, permission to fail. Because they know something crucial. Resilience is not born from protection. It is born from experience. The challenge for modern parents isn't to recreate the 1970s. Society has changed, and some of those changes are positive. We've addressed real dangers. We've increased awareness of important issues. But the challenge is to ask, how do we raise children who are both safe and resilient, protected and capable, supported and independent? Perhaps the greatest gift we can give a child is not safety without pain, but faith in their ability to cope. Not a life without challenges, but the confidence to face them. Not protection from all risk, but the skills to navigate it. The children of the 1970s teach us that competence is built through experience, that confidence comes from facing challenges, and that resilience grows in the space between complete protection and complete freedom. So let me ask you this. What year were you born? And do you think children today are missing something important? That space still exists. We just have to be brave enough and trusting enough to let our children find it.